All right, we are live. How's everybody out there doing? Just starting a new podcast up here. 12 pounds of gold. Been some other places in the past. Had a couple channels in the past. Just messing around a little bit, making some predictions. Nothing all that big. Learned a little bit from it. Hopefully, right? This podcast is going to be a little bit better, but this is going to be the new spot, right? Eventually, we're going to have, or this is the YouTube channel at least. 12 Pounds of Gold will be the name of the podcast. Eventually, we're going to get the website up and running, depending on when you listen to this. You know, it may or may not be there. You may or may not see a template with some filler stuff that comes with the WordPress theme before I package this up and everything and get it up there. Do a little bit of artwork, stuff like that. But this is going to be it basically, and it'll be a boxing and an MMA podcast, right? Reviewing past events, making predictions, analysis on future events. You catch this on YouTube. There'll be, some of the different, each podcast may be formatted a little bit differently. Some of them are just going to be recaps and maybe not have a lot of visual content. But some of the analysis ones, I'll actually be taking a lot of past fight clips, breaking them down, really analyzing things, how I see it, what plays out good, strengths, weaknesses, tendencies of guys, how they're going to match up. Styles make fights, of course. You hear me say that 1,000,001 times over the course of this thing. But right now, today, Sunday, April 22nd, right? So this first podcast, this will just be a review of last night. It was a big night last night, pretty good, pretty entertaining. I guess it didn't, it wasn't on everybody's radar as far as like this huge event. It wasn't a bunch of build-up. You had boxing over on Showtime with Broner and Vargas, triple header, right? So you had Centeno Davis versus Cuellar, Charlo versus Centeno, and Jesse Vargas versus Broner. And then you had the UFC card too, headlined by Kevin Lee versus Edson Barboza. So all in all, a pretty good night, man. If I had to make one statement that kind of would sum up the night, it was a night of finishes. Man, for the most part, dudes were out there getting smoked. You look at the UFC card specifically, there were some dudes on there with some brutal finishes. The Charlo fight, that short little left hook, crushed him. Got him right out of there with the right hand. No surprise, though. Charlo's a finisher, right? Everybody sees that kind of stuff coming, at least for a while now. Move up to 160 is looking good. I don't know. He did call out Triple G after the fight, though. And I don't know. He may be getting a little bit ahead of himself with that one. Not so sure how that's going to turn out. His thing is, don't get me wrong. Charlo's, he's highly skilled. What he brings to the table is a substantial skill set for sure. But man, Triple G is uncommon amongst uncommon people. That guy comes in there and he lands some shots, and all of a sudden the entire complexion of the fight changes. So, he just is devastating. Brutal left hook to the body, brutal left hook upstairs, mixes things up well. And anybody who thinks that his confidence didn't get a huge boost after that Canelo fight is sadly mistaken. Because if you remember that Canelo fight, he was getting it handed to him by Canelo for the most part early in that fight. First 3 rounds, first 4 rounds, something like that. Canelo was really getting off on him, getting off first, landing hard shots, backing him up. But Triple G weathered that storm and came back and started landing some devastating bombs. And in my opinion, won the fight, but whatever. It is what it is. But in my opinion, he did win it, and then he landed some hard shots, and you could see his confidence level change mid-fight. Came in, worked his game plan. Now against a guy like Charlo, younger guy, don't get me wrong, he's definitely going to have some advantages. You're looking at he'll probably have a speed advantage. He's got a height and reach advantage. Although I don't know if Golovkin's got some long arms, man. But Charlo will have the reach advantage. Definitely think Golovkin is the naturally bigger man. I think it's a little bit rough for him to get to 160, whereas Charlo, man, he was fighting at 154 at one point. So make no mistake about it, that's a difference, especially considering the fact that Triple G comes in there and backs you up, uses his strength advantage, applies constant pressure, both physically and mentally. Ooh, that'll be a good one. Either way, though, Charlo, he looked really good last night. You know, he came in, like always, mixes his punches up well, controls the distance. You know, was stalking him early while Centeno was moving around the ring. You know, starting to land the jab, trying to kind of get things. And then right after that, man, closed the show in short order. Landed the right hand a couple times. Caught him inside with that short little left hook. You know, and Centeno, that's the one that, you know, everyone, you know, everybody who knows that's a really damaging shot. And the reason that was so specifically damaging, not because Charlo's a big puncher, which he is, not because, you know, proper technique and there was good leverage behind it and everything, which there was, but it was the fact that Centeno actually had his guard up. Centeno had that right hand up. He thought that was going to be blocked. He saw that shot coming, put up that right hand, figured it was already taken care of. He was going to block it, come back with something of his own. But when that came in short and caught him, and he thought he had it blocked, it's that punch you don't expect. And man, woo, that was it. Over. You know, that right hand that he landed afterwards was just icing on the cake to actually knock him out cold. I mean, yeah, that was a really impressive performance. But it's that shot that he didn't see coming. That's why it hurt him so much. You know, classic story. But we'll see what Charlo gets next. He probably won't get Triple G next. You know, probably just gonna, you know, I mean, there's Triple G's fought, and that's right, I forgot. Canelo got the suspension, so Triple G's now fighting Vargas Martirosyan, who, you know, he was never a world champion. A lot of promise at one point, contender. You know, tall guy, rangy guy. You know, definitely had some good qualities and stuff. You know, he's also past his prime at this point, but yeah, he was never on Triple G's level, much less now. So that'll just be like a more or less a stay busy fight. I think they even move. I don't even know what's in California, whatever. But he'll be fighting Triple G, or Triple G will be fighting Canelo again in September, most likely. I don't think it's like official or anything like that, but based off of the suspension that Canelo got, he'll be good to go again in mid-August, I believe. So that'll open them up for fighting on Mexican Independence Day weekend, the Triple G Canelo rematch. And then depending on what happens out of that one, that's where I imagine that's going to affect what Charlo wants to do. You know, but neither one of those guys are probably going to be fighting again until what? You know, February, March. I mean, if you're talking Canelo, he might not fight again until May, just to get out on Cinco de Mayo weekend and try to maximize that. He always seems to, you know, May and September seem to be his things. I don't know if he'll be fighting before that, like a February fight or something. Triple G might. You know, we'll see. And then, you know, who does Charlo get? Does he get the winner of that fight? Does he get the loser of that fight? I don't know. We'll see. You know, we'll see how it goes. Doesn't matter what happens as far as the matchup against Triple G, man. That's gonna be a rough one for him stylistically. And then Vargas Broner. Gotta be honest here. Now, when I was watching that fight, going into it, I was leaning towards Vargas. That's why I was picking going in. I figured, you know, the problem with Broner was going to be exactly what we've seen in the past from him, man. Like, it's that same old tired story, right? Dude's like, oh, no, I'm refocused. I'm training hard. I'm doing this, whatever, man. Heard that story a million times. You believe that. There's going to be a lot of people selling you a lot of myths over time. Adrian Broner, man, his story is the same as it is what it is. He is not a man who's going to be coming in focused and working hard. He's not going to be somebody who's known for his incredible work ethic. He's not going to be somebody who's known for putting in so much time in the gym, really develop and bringing up his weaknesses. And, you know, he's going to come in and he's going to do what he does. If he can beat you, then he's going to beat you. If he can't, then you got him. But he's not going to adapt. He's not going to change things up. He's not going to come with a different style. He's not going to evolve over time as his physical skills start to degrade and tweak his style. Like, I mean, he was billed as a world beater early in his career. But let's be honest with each other. Everybody that he was fighting, he was huge compared to him. The man was massive when he was coming in and making 135 pounds. And, you know, he was beating up on little guys. And I don't want to take anything from him. He was incredibly fast hands, physically gifted, an athlete, knows how to throw punches very well, accurate punches, hard punches, crisp, put the combinations together. But he was doing it against competition that wasn't at his level. And he did what he was supposed to do, which was get him out of there. But when he moved up in weight, and now he's fighting guys at 140, especially when he moved up to 147. But now that he's fighting guys who are at his weight and guys who are well-rounded fighters, guys who have more than just one trick, or guys who are world-class at least one facet of the game, he doesn't shine like that anymore. Whether it's against Marcos Maidana, who exposed him for that overhand right, and backing him up, exposed his weakness to backing up and pressure. Whether it's Sean Porter, who came in there and did the same thing, hit him with the overhand right and bullied him around. Whether it was Paulie Malignaggi, who, Broner won the fight, but at the same time, a lot of people think Malignaggi won, but even if you don't think Malignaggi won, he definitely looked very good in spots. And he did it a different way, right? Malignaggi never been known for power, real low knockout percentage, but incredible boxer. Really good footwork, really good hand speed, really knowledgeable about the game. And he was at the end of his career when he fought Broner. Definitely not at the peak. It wasn't like that was when he fought Cotto, back when he was on, coming up on the rise, the Magic Man. He looked really good back then. This was, and he was already putting it on Broner, who was the young guy. He was building that fight as the young lion who was supposed to come up and really, make his name even more off of Malignaggi. And he won, but boy, it was close, man. It was close. That's not the way Broner saw that fight going into it. Malignaggi came in there and showed another way to beat Broner. And I kind of thought that Vargas was going to come in and it was going to be the classic thing, right? Vargas was going to come in, bigger guy, taller guy. He was going to control distance, work the jab. Broner, he looked sharp, throw good counter shots, look good in spots, but eventually he'd have his hands in his pockets too much. Wouldn't throw enough punches, due to inactivity. That's kind of it. You lose. And he'd get stung with the overhand right. So I thought it was going to be Vargas by decision. That in my opinion, that would still be a legitimate score if you gave it Vargas. Like Vargas 115, 113. No problem. The draw's all right. I got no problem with that. Broner came on late, man. He made a good adjustment mid-fight. He came on late with that lead right and started throwing that lead right, landing it 3-4 times in a row, just coming right over the top of Vargas's left. When he is the bully, and when he leads the action, when he gets off first, when he doesn't allow guys to dictate, when he doesn't just stand there with his hands up, he looks a lot better and he can do a lot. But a big part of the problem, or a big part of his problem, is that he doesn't know how to transition smoothly between offense and defense, right? He's either in defensive mode or he's in offensive mode. He doesn't know how to switch it up. Like, he's good when he's leading. He's got some good counters. Sometimes I think he sweeps a little bit wide with that left hook, but he disguises it well in the sense that he sweeps with it so much that I think it actually gets out of the way of guys' field of vision, but it's so fast that it comes back in quick before they can make adjustments. He caught Vargas with it a few times, and he's been known throughout his career. In training camp, Vargas's trainer, Mike McCallum, he made the comment a couple times about how dangerous Broner's left hook was, and he's right. Very dangerous shot. Probably his most dangerous one. Although I don't know. after that fight, Vargas may have a different opinion. He may be leaning towards the lead right as Broner's most dangerous shot. But either way, the body snatcher, Mike McCallum, he figured it. He saw that coming in and it landed. But he doesn't transition well enough between the offense and defense. So the most elite guys in the division are going to be able to take advantage of that. They're going to be able to outwork him, make him keep his hands in his pockets. I question his conditioning anyways again, but that goes back to his work ethic. So even though maybe he's got that real level output for a couple of reasons. One, because he doesn't transition well between offense and defense. So as long as you're throwing shots, you can keep him busy. And then two, he doesn't really trust his cardio. So he that's always in the back of his mind, and he's always waiting. He's always holding back a little bit, wondering, man, what's going to happen? Because let me tell you, Vince Lombardi called it, okay? Fatigue will make cowards of us all. You don't want to be standing in front of a trained fighter in the 10th round, tired, okay? Because they will steamroll you. And he knows it. He's been in the gym, so, but you can't quit in a real fight. You can quit in the gym, he can gracefully bow out. Oh, my elbow, and step out of the sparring session when he starts to get really winded. I joke, but seriously though, training is different than a real fight. So maybe that's in the back of his mind. I remember when there was a lot of trash talk in that fight coming up between him and Paulie Malignaggi. But one of the things Paulie Malignaggi mentioned in that was he said Adrian probably doesn't remember, but I remember when he was young and nobody knew him when we were in the gym. And he came up and he caught me in the locker room, and he said, "Paulie, how do you do it, man? How do you go all those rounds, man? I'm so tired after 6." And Malignaggi outed him at a press conference, and Broner even laughed about it, kind of indicating that he wasn't even disputing that the event happened. And it was pretty funny because Malignaggi was telling him I'm just going to take this guy into the later rounds and drown him. He doesn't have the skills, he doesn't have the conditioning, he's not going to be able to do it. But you've seen that play out through Broner's career. You've seen that in the way that he handles himself. You've seen that with his lack of activity and things like that. So, it's probably he probably doubts it. He probably doubts it. I know this was the first fight he started working with Kevin Cunningham, right? He was known, obviously. His name came on the scene working with Devin Alexander. So maybe we'll see a slight difference now. I don't know. I didn't really notice a difference, to be honest. I didn't really notice a change. I think Broner's type of guy, man, that a new trainer comes in, if he respects him, he'll allow him to make some tweaks here and there, a few changes, but ultimately I think he's going to be a classic example of you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I think he's going to be who he is, like I said. So, but we'll see going forward. Definitely got my eyes on him. Same thing with Vargas, man. I'm a big Vargas fan, right? He's actually kind of like the polar opposite. Incredibly hard worker. Toiled for years under the radar, never had the benefit of having some kind of built-in promotional gimmick, a super built-in fan base, just different things that some guys get, some guys don't, right? Some guys are just naturally appealing, charismatic, some guys aren't. Some guys fans just gravitate towards, some guys they don't. And he's been a really good fighter for a long time, ever since even his amateur career. He was out there training, still trains in Las Vegas in the Mayweather gym, so he gets incredible work out there. As far as sparring partners, Las Vegas is arguably the capital of boxing. It is for the professional game, but even a lot of fighters are going to come through there regardless. You can make the argument that there's higher quality talent, maybe in the gyms in Southern California, right? Obviously, a lot of good guys out there, but that's not where you see a lot of the pro scene. The pros, the top of the top of the top are going through Vegas. Mayweather's got his gym out there, which a lot of people travel through. So you get a lot of guys out there. My point being that when he's living out there, when he's training out there, when he's hooked up with a guy like Mayweather, when he's training at that gym, he's seeing so many different styles. He's being thrown through the meat grinder. It's ultimately the situation where you make it or you don't. Right? Nobody's out there to baby you. You make it or you don't. Especially if you don't have some great contract with your promoter. Especially if you don't have somebody who's trying to really nurture you and turn you into somebody who's like the face of boxing and somebody who's going to make a bunch of money. Because, that's never been Jesse Vargas. He's never had that going for him. He's never had a bunch of people backing him. Never had a whole bunch of promotional money constantly pushing him, getting him perfect fights for his style. Guys that he can go out there and just look great against. So, man, he earned it the hard way. I really like him. Good for him. I think the turning point in his career, believe it or not, was actually that Tim Bradley fight when he fought Timothy Bradley. It was in that fight because I feel like he gave it away at the end, and I think he knew it. He had him and he gave it away. And I don't want to take anything from Timothy Bradley when I say that, man. Shout out to Timothy Bradley, great fighter, tremendous heart. Really liked when he at the end of his career there when he hooked up with Teddy Atlas, especially in the Brandon Rios fight. That was impressive. But it doesn't take away from the fact that I think Jesse Vargas had that fight. And it was kind of the same thing early in the fight, kind of the same thing as we saw with him against Broner. Early in the fight, man, he had it. Early in the fight, he was there. I think he was winning the fight. I think he was doing some really good things. But Timothy Bradley, man, he came on strong, if I remember correctly. Man, I haven't watched the fight in a long time, but I remember thinking that. I hope I'm not hope I'm not over there, and I hope I'm not sounding crazy, mixing it up with another fight the way I'm sounding up. But that's the way I remember. I hope I'm not get comments comments from you guys like, what are you talking about? That's not the way the fight went. And it's like, you know, I just hope I'm not mixing it up with another one. But I clearly remember that thought from it, that I felt like he gave it away. And then the thing was, he came out in his next fight against Saddam Ali, who was a little bit different, right? A little bit different than Vargas in the sense that Saddam Ali was an Olympian, right? Saddam Ali had a bunch of promotional muscle behind him from his amateur days, right? People were looking forward to him turning pro. People were talking about him. He was, kind of flashy, right? With coming out at the same time as Gary Russell Jr., right? Guys known for their hand speed. I mean, he doesn't have the hand speed of Gary Russell Jr. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to compare that, but dude's got the lightning hands. But no, Saddam Ali. But he comes out and Jesse Vargas. I feel like he came out with a different attitude in that fight. Came out much more aggressive. You know, difference between somebody being on their toes and somebody being flat-footed. Man, he came out there and he meant business, and he got him out of there. Came out there, got him out of there, and he was like, man, he stuck his flag in the ground with that one, put people on notice. Obviously, he got outclassed in the Pacquiao fight, but what are you gonna do? You know, most people do. And so we'll see what happens after last night. After last night, really impressive. You know, and then the UFC card, right? That was a good one too, right? Had some good finishes in there, right? Woo! What about that Dan Hooker, the Hangman? Dude put the nasty knee right on Jim Miller's chin. I don't know, Jim Miller, man. I've been a Jim Miller fan forever, but I think it's time for him to. He needs to seriously consider hanging it up. I think that's 4 losses in a row now, man. It's like the UFC probably doesn't want to cut him. Dude's a legend. He's only like 30, 34, 35 or something, which ultimately, you know, you don't think of as that old. But his physical skills have degraded, which you would expect from a guy who's been fighting as long as he has and with the age that he's at. And he was never really like a world-class athlete. Jim Miller beat guys off of tenacity and straight skill set. He great work ethic, great skill set. You know, maybe not great. Don't get me wrong. That's exaggerating a little bit, but very good, right? Had a background in high school wrestling out of New Jersey and black belt in jiu-jitsu. And not just a black belt. You know, there's a lot of guys who get black belts in jiu-jitsu, then they come up in MMA. It's a little bit different, right? Especially if you were working gi. But it's different, and they won't necessarily look like what you would associate with a black belt in MMA. But man, Jim Miller, he got some submissions against some impressive guys. Came out there and fucking put it on some guys, man. So a very good MMA grappler. Figured out a way to make his grappling transition very well. But never the best athlete. Never the most explosive. So now that his skill sets went down a little bit more even, it's tough against these young guys, especially because the sport is still in its upward trajectory in regards to the caliber of athletes that come into that and come into it. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, sports like that, right? These are we'll call them tier 1 sports. These aren't niche sports in America. These are tier 1 sports, right? They have the most participants amongst kids, amongst young kids in grade school, in high school, in college, everything like that, right? They're on TV. They have the most money. They get the scholarships as far as college, pro money. It's out of control. Contracts, TV deals, all this kind of stuff, right? So what that does is the best athletes that you have are naturally going to gravitate towards those sports, right? So you have the best raw athletes going towards those sports. You also have, because of the money that's involved, you get some of the best minds regarding coaching and regarding strength and conditioning, regarding just working on things, knowledge of skills that are needed about the game, also knowledge about how to correctly teach people. So you just get the best of the best of the best all the way up and down when you're involved with those sports. So by the time you get to the professional level, and this kind of feeder system, we'll call it, has been working for decades. The only people who are pretty much getting to the top are people who are, one, just freak athletes. They're awesome athletes. And two, they have awesome skill sets, right? You can't make it there without both of them because you've got such a wide pool at the bottom. You've got millions and millions and millions and millions of people, right? Every year, kids who are just coming into these programs and working as hard as they can. And by the time you get to the NBA, I mean, how many people are really in the NBA? You got 12 guys all across 30 teams? That's it. That's the only people who can call themselves NBA players. Man, that's an incredibly low amount, which means you're only getting the best of the best of the best. NFL, I mean, that's bigger, right? 32 teams, 53 guys on the roster. You got special teamers and stuff like that. Guys who are making, your third string linebackers, third string receivers. But anyway, my point being the same thing. Athletics, best of the best of the best. Skill set has to be incredibly high because there's so many people who want to make it there, and then there's just so few slots. Okay? And it keeps getting the best, and it keeps attracting people because of the popularity and the exposure and the money. Okay? Now, fighting, whether you're talking about boxing or MMA, but MMA specifically, right? These are secondary sports in America. These are niche sports, right? But MMA specifically, it's new. Boxing used to be bigger when they were showing it on regular TV, Wild World of Sports, stuff like that. You were out there before cable. You got to watch Muhammad Ali. You got to watch Sugar Ray Leonard and stuff like that on regular TV. So it was a lot bigger. But than it is nowadays since cable TV and pay-per-views and stuff. But MMA, really, it's new. I mean, in the form that we know it now, it's not even 20 years old. I mean, I remember back watching the original UFCs with Royce Gracie, right? No time limits. Very few rules, no weight classes, 3 fights in one night. What was going on back then. I mean, I still don't agree with the term, but they called it human cockfighting, right? They got banned in whatever it was, 48 states, 49 states, or, before the Fertitta brothers bought it, before Dana White got involved with it, before these things, before they came out with the Ultimate Fighter, before they made all the changes, right? That's less than 20 years ago. Okay, that's less than 20 years ago. Which means we're still seeing a big transition in the sport. It's still getting more and more and more popular. Which means we're seeing young kids now who are coming up when they're 6 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, who want to get involved with that first. They're drawn to it. It's attractive. They're being exposed to it mainstream through things like Fox, FS1, right? They're being more, and more exposure brings more interest, and more interest brings more kids who are going to have a higher athletic talent or a better athlete at a younger age to be able to get them to turn into a different skill set. I mean, you're just seeing it. You're starting to see it already. Right? We're already starting to see it with the young crop of talent that's coming into the UFC. And guys like Jim Miller, they definitely. They're definitely just not quite on that same level. So then as they're getting older and their skill set erodes a little bit more, starts to kind of look rough for them in there, man. And I've been a huge Jim Miller fan forever, man. Shout out to Jim Miller. Really, I've always liked him. Still do. That doesn't change. But nasty knockout last night. And it kind of went out extra bad for him with that extra shot that he took on the ground. Fuck Dan Hooker, man. He did not have to land that punch. I get it. It's in the moment. But fuck, man. I mean, Jim Miller landed on the ground. He's clearly out. He was out before he hit the ground. Guy's out cold. Hits the ground. He's in an awkward position and everything. You can clearly see it. And I could understand it if the punch would have already started. I could understand it if the strike would have already started. Man, Dan Hooker looked like he repositioned his feet to get in with some decent leverage on it, and wound up, bang, caught him right on the chin. Actually looked like it woke Jim Miller up. That's how off it was. It looked like it actually woke him up. The dude was out. He positions himself, kind of winds up for it like he's taking a real nice swing and smacks him. Jim Miller gets back up, and I mean, some guys want to blame the ref for it. I don't, because when you watch the replay, the ref As soon as he caught him with that knee, the ref took off for him right away. He knew that it was going to be a shot. And I guess you can make the argument that the ref was kind of standing a little bit further away than he would have liked. But I think that was just because of positioning. It was kind of in the moment. I think, the way they were transitioning, the ref was kind of in a movement. He was just kind of moving to get a better angle to kind of see things. And in that kind of fluidity in the moment of how things move, he was just a few steps further away than he normally would have liked. And it just so happened that that's when that shot landed. Took him an extra half second to get there before he could call it off. And unfortunately, Jim Miller takes the shot on the ground. But it is what it is. It's a nasty sport. It's unfortunate. Still don't think I don't think that was as bad as when Rockhold was pounding on Weidman, and that thing should have been called off so much sooner. Whew, that was an egregious error by the referee, in my opinion. But whatever, that's another story. That's another story. Herb Dean, man. Sometimes I don't know. Was that Herb Dean in that one? I've seen Herb Dean let some fights go for what I consider a little bit long. That's for sure. Joked about it, but yeah, that was a nasty one. That was a nasty one. But congratulations to Dan Hooker for that win. That was a good one. And then Frankie Edgar and Cub Swanson. That was one. Good win for Frankie Edgar. A lot of people were worried about him, that he was getting back in a little bit too early off that Ortega fight. And they had reason to think that. They had a legitimate reason to worry that, or to be concerned about that. That was a nasty shot that he took. Dude got his bell rung for sure against Ortega. What was it, like 47 days ago or something? 50 days ago? That's no time at all, especially when you consider the fact that you're getting right back into it. And he probably didn't do any sparring. If he did, it was probably really light. Getting ready for the fight. He had that fight camp, then he had the fight, so it's not like he was really necessarily he wasn't going to be out of shape, and as long as you're doing like kind of light, maybe really light sparring, but good, like actual good work as far as movement and distance, like he'll still be able to keep his timing, and that's really what you like to get, and is out of your sparring. You really like to keep your timing sharp. That's one of the main things that you're getting from sparring versus if you're doing all the other work without doing sparring. Then your timing's clearly going to suffer. So because of the fact that he fought so soon, he probably didn't necessarily have to spar, and I'm sure that he wouldn't have. Even if he did, he probably would have laid off it anyways, just to be on the safe side, right? Err on the side of caution because of that shot that he took in that Ortega fight. But yeah, when you take all that into consideration, it just seemed like it was really soon for him to get back. So I was a little concerned about it. That being said, not all knockouts are equal. Right? When Khabib comes in there and whoops Michael Johnson, that's not the same as when Frankie Edgar took that shot from Ortega. Yeah, Frankie Edgar got dropped. It was nasty. He was probably unconscious for a second. Took and you're like, ooh, that was an ugly one, and all of that kind of stuff, right? But I think what that does to your nervous system and what that does to your body, what that takes out of it, with the recovery that's needed, it's not the same as when Khabib sat there on Michael Johnson's chest and just destroyed him, just pounded him for whatever it was, like 4 rounds before he ended up submitting him. Just nasty style, just bang, 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 just man, just landing shots, right? Just landing them. I'm with my wife at the time. She's like, I can't even watch this. She gets up and leaves the room. She's like, tell me when it's over. Like, it was just brutal. It was just one of those beatings where it was like you felt bad for the guy, man. No quitting him at all. Shout out to Michael Johnson. Whoo, he's definitely in the running for one of the toughest men God ever made after that one. I remember thinking about it after Dan Henderson and his fights with Shogun. Same thing, right? They like whatever that dude's made out of, man, incredibly tough, right? Piece of iron. But yeah, Michael Johnson, he's made out of that same stuff. He was after that Khabib fight. You could, that just no quitting him at all ever. Anybody who doubts that man's heart is absolutely insane. But my point being, it's just different, right? So I think that takes way more out of you. So I wasn't as worried as some people were necessarily bringing it up, but it was definitely a concern of mine with Frankie coming in here. That being said, I think he's got Cub's number. The way you beat Frankie Edgar, and he's been beaten now a few times, right? Cub doesn't have that in him. He doesn't have that gear. He doesn't have that skill. He doesn't have that. They could fight 100 times. Man, Frankie Edgar's winning 100 times, man. But, and as good as Cub is, I think stylistically, and styles make fights, he's just got his number. It's not going to happen. So, we'll see what happens going forward. I don't see Frankie Edgar beating Max Holloway, though. Let me just go ahead and put that out there. I don't see that one happening. I know that they announced Max Holloway and Ortega are fighting July 7th in Vegas. Huge card, man. DC Stipe on there too. That's gonna be out of control. But yeah, I mean, should Max Holloway win that fight? I do not see Frankie Edgar beating him. And if Ortega wins that fight, I don't even think that there's any chance at all that the UFC books that rematch. Not after getting starched in the first round like that, man. No way. They'll give Ortega somebody else. And Frankie will be stuck fighting. Who knows? What would he do then? Would he fight? Would he fight Max Holloway anyways? And then if Max Holloway beats him, while Ortega fights somebody else, then Max Holloway gets his rematch to get back at the belt in like early 2019 or something. I don't know. We'll see. And the main event, right? Barboza versus Kevin Lee. And I was leaning towards Kevin Lee coming into this one. I mean, obviously, people are gonna scoff. Hindsight's 2020, right? This was the first podcast I'm putting out there, and even this one, man, I'm not fully prepared. Like, I don't have the artwork done, don't have the intro ready. There's certain visual aspects that aren't gonna be there. But I just had to get it out there, man. Enough was enough. I just had to get this thing out, had to get the first one going, and I'll get all those other things because I've been wanting to do it for a while. Wanted to make a podcast previewing these fights, not just reviewing them. And I kept telling myself, no, I don't want to do it until I'm ready with as far as all the other stuff. But finally, enough is enough. I had to get it up there. So you're just hearing me talk about how I was leaning towards Kevin Lee instead of me being able to verify it with the prediction. And I apologize for that one. It's never as good, right? It's never as good to just hear me tell you, hey, this is what I was thinking after the event versus me putting it up there beforehand. But those days are over. From here on out, I'll be having the podcast up on time. But I was leaning towards Kevin Lee. And the reason for that is I think Barboza, he's pretty much, his weaknesses are they're obvious and they're there and they're going to be there. For starters, got to apply pressure 100%. You have to be in that man's face. If you stand in front of him, you're going to turn into nothing but a punching bag until your body breaks down, and it ain't going to take long because dude's got devastating kicks and power and accuracy and speed and everything else. So number one, you got to apply pressure and you got to use angles. Can't come straight on. He's going to smoke you, man. He's too good for that. And you got to not just apply pressure, you have to actually back him up. And the reason for that is he can't get off as many shots. He's not as versatile backing up. Right? Different kicks that he can throw, different stuff like that. And he's still good, man. It's still going to be rough on you. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's ever going to be a cakewalk for anybody, no matter who you are. Dude gets some nasty. Although Khabib made it look pretty easy, but Barboza gets some nasty shots off, and you saw that last night with Kevin Lee. All right, I mean, Kevin Lee comes in there, so the reason I'm leaning towards him, I think he's got underrated athleticism. He's a very, very good wrestler. We saw that even against Tony Ferguson. Dude got the mount on Tony Ferguson. Ooh, man, I don't care who you are. Man, okay, I don't care what else goes on in the course of that fight. If you legitimately get the mount against Tony Ferguson, man, I'm tipping my hat to you. That is highly impressive. Well done, sir. Well done. So we knew going into this, right? I feel Kevin Lee's got underrated athleticism. I feel, so he's got the explosiveness and what it's going to take. Good footwork. I feel like, can go in and out well, cover the gap, control distance, things like that. Very good wrestling skills. His takedowns are there, and we saw that last night. Picked up Barboza a few times. Fucking picked him up over his shoulder, slammed him down pretty impressively. I saw that kind of thing coming. So I knew that if, he's going to want to push forward, especially Khabib's just laying out the blueprint. Kevin Lee, this is a huge fight for him coming off the Tony Ferguson loss as far as he wants to stake his claim. Tony Ferguson's got the injury. Conor's got the, who knows what's going to go on as far as when he's coming back. So, obviously Kevin Lee's looking at this like, man, I come in here, I look impressive. There's a very real possibility I get this next title fight. So a lot of it's on his mind. I know he's going to come in hard. And as impressive as, let's keep in mind, as impressive as he looked in that Tony Ferguson fight, there is no question that he had a staph infection, which took how much out of him? We know it took something out of him, probably a significant amount. We can't quantify. We don't exactly know how much, but we know it's something, because nobody goes through a staph infection that close to the actual performance night of an event and not have it matter. We know that. And then he comes in last night. I don't know, man. Let me tell you, this guy. I know he's got that name, the Motown Phenom, but that victory looked an awful lot like it was victory via immigrant mentality. Okay, just domination. I know he's from Detroit, but I don't know. That right there, that's what Joey Diaz was talking about. That was domination via immigrant mentality. He just came in there and put it on him with one hiccup. So all of a sudden he gets wheel kicked in the top of his head, right? Or was it right behind the ear or wherever he got caught? But he put him on. He was doing the chicken dance. That reminded me of when Zab Judah got caught by Costa Zoo. He put him on the chicken. He was giving him the chicken dance out there. He was on Queer Street. Those legs were moving around. Man, not good. Not good. But yeah, but I'll tell you what a recovery. What a recovery though. Because that definitely hurt him, right? I mean, you could see it. He was all over the place, right? Like that's how guys get finished, right? That's what happens right before Barboza puts people away, or anybody for that matter, when you're that hurt. But against a striker as good as Barboza, and it happened at distance, which gave him the ability to follow up. Wow. And what did Kevin Lee do? Comes in, grapples, controls him, eventually gets him down, loses the first, gets him in the clinch, right? Loses it, gets back to him, gets him up against the cage, gets him in his wheelhouse, takes him down, and recovers, right? I think it was like he had a body lock on him, like an over-under, right? With his hands grasped behind him, all that shoulder pressure on top of him, right in his chest with his head off to the side. Just breathing, allowing himself time to recover. That was really impressive, really well done, because that would have been it right there. And then how would he have looked? Obviously, he's out of the title talk for at least a year, 18 months, coming off 2 losses. Tony Ferguson finishes you, then Barboza kicks you in the head, and you're out of there. Yeah. But by the end of round 3, he was pretty much all the way back. So great recovery skills. Not only the knowledgeable fighter being able to actually execute in there, but he recovered well, which tells you how good a shape he was in. And it was and then it was funny, right at the end of that round, Kevin Lee landed like a little sneaky right hook that looked like it got Barboza's attention coming off the cage. He like kind of snuck it in there, kind of landed it behind Barboza's left hand. A little sneaky right hook, and it looked like it got Barboza's attention. And as soon as he landed, I was like, oh, all right, okay. Barboza, he felt that. He's going to be worried about it. He's not brimming with confidence anymore like he was 2.5 minutes ago. The tide had already started to go back to where it was. So it is what it is, Above and beyond that crazy ending. I don't know, it was weird. Maybe it was just weird because of the way the announcers called it. Because at first it looked like he was calling for the mouthpiece. Then he calls the doctor in. The doctor stops it because of the cut. Waves it off super quick. I don't know. Cut didn't look that bad to me. Barboza wasn't complaining about it. I don't know. I feel like it was like that was a mercy stop, which I don't disagree with, because Barboza was getting it put on him. There's no need for. He wasn't winning that fight. There was no need to go on any further. That's for sure. So I appreciate the stoppage. I agree with the stoppage in that regard. It just seemed kind of odd because guys have definitely had, unless I'm missing it, unless I just didn't see it correctly, it seemed like guys have had cuts that are way worse than that, and fights go on, and they're not even questioned about going on. They just continue. Everybody knows that cut isn't that bad. It can keep going. You didn't hear the team, the announcing team talking about it. Barboza wasn't constantly pawing at his eye or something. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of blood there and everything, but stop the fight, and especially not even stopping in between the rounds. You stop it in the middle of the round, you stop the fight. I don't know. That was that isn't what I normally see or expect. But whatever, it is what it is. No big deal. Like I said, I don't really disagree with it in the sense that Barboza was in there getting smashed anyways, man. So that was good that got stopped, because guys, those are the ones that shorten your career up. You know, and he's already starting to get up there. It's like, man, it's like your nervous system has to bounce back once you take too hard of a beating, and sometimes you just don't see it from guys. So that's never good. That's not what it's about. You know, it's not what everybody's there for. So either way, congratulations to Kevin Lee, man. Highly impressive performance. So it was a good night of fights. Really good for the fans. You know, good fights in the sense that like set things up for future opponents, for seeing how the division's going to shake out, or multiple divisions, how they're going to shake out, especially, you know, across two sports, boxing and UFC. So all in all, pretty good. Looking forward to it. Got the next UFC coming up May 12th. I believe that's the one that's it's headlined by Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington. May 12th down in Brazil. I'll definitely be throwing a preview up there. Who knows going forward? Probably end up doing some interviews with fighters and stuff too, getting some coaches, strength and conditioning trainers, getting people on here, hearing things they got to say, asking them questions, just being more involved with the industry above and beyond just my opinion and analysis, breaking down fights and reviewing them, stuff like that. So there'll be a lot of good things going forward with the podcast. Like I said, we're going to get it up on the website soon. We've got the YouTube channel here. Hope you guys really like it. Any feedback you want, please leave comments below. Let me know. Send messages, whatever. Track me down. Let me know what you think about it. Critiques, criticism. Give it the thumbs up if you like it. Really looking for, really hoping you do. I'm going to start doing this on a regular basis here. Always giving picks and stuff too. So you guys will always be end up getting that beforehand, before as things go on. All right, so that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up here. Have a good one. Looking forward to making the next one. Glad to finally get this one up for everybody. Take care.